Welcome back, everybody. Today's video is a long overdue meta update. 7.37e has been released, but since I haven't made an update in so long, we're going to be talking about what we saw in that patch, but also just generally what the state of the meta is right now, and basically why we saw this small patch. So we've gotten a bunch of new heroes recently, but we haven't had too much being changed about the game. So in the last month, I spent 3 weeks at Dream League watching competitive Dota and getting a grasp on which heroes are creme de la creme right now. And there was one thing that particularly caught my eye across the entire tournament, and that was that the carry pool was really limited, and it seemed like there were the studs and there were the duds, and there was hardly anything in between for carries. So for me, it was actually a very carry-defined meta, because of the fact that if you weren't one of these 6 or 7 heroes, it just felt really bad. The heroes that are popular fits one or more of these descriptions. They have a built-in farming mechanic, they have a reliable laning stage, they come online pretty early, and they generally bought like sustain and stat items. So like Mask of Madness plus stats. So what made these heroes better than everyone else is that they just hit a timing that no other hero could compete with, and it seemed like if you didn't have these heroes, you were playing 4v5. So the heroes in mind were Alchemist, who's going like a Radiance BKB Blink Dagger build and just being a really early initiator from the carry role. Even though he buys Radiance, he'll get it much earlier than anybody else, going the seed money facet to make his laning stage a lot better. You have SF, who became this most absurd right clicker, with just all the buffs over time. You have Medusa, you have Luna, you have Gyro, the 3 split shot spread damage carries that also were ranged and had pretty reliable laning phases. And then you had Dragonite with the fire facet that gave him the built-in cleave, and he's basically a better Sven because in the mid to late game he becomes a stunner that has ranged damage, and in the laning phase he has a lot more built-in sustain and reliable creep gathering mechanics, right? And he's also much better at like going through the twin gate or just participating in mid-game fights than a Sven is in the current meta. So other heroes that were popping up, we started to see some Magnus carry. We started to see some Templar Assassin carry. Both heroes kind of fit the same description of what we talked about before. We even saw some Morphling, who mainly stood out for his like really strong laning phase and had like decent mid-game timings, but his win rate was not very good either. And it feels like he is low reward for high risk. So if you're like a Morphling spammer, maybe he's the hero for you. But from what we've chosen, I basically feel like that defined the meta. And Dota is not the only thing that the meta is constantly evolving in. Methods of learning are always evolving and even becoming gamified. Which brings me to the sponsor of this video, BootDev. BootDev is a platform that offers the smartest way to master back-end web development from start to finish in the Python and Go programming languages. It does so by tackling the hardest problem in online learning, boredom. BootDev is self-paced and feels like a captivating RPG game. It is designed to get you writing a ton of code, because it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have if you aren't willing to get your hands a little bit dirty on that keyboard. One of my favorite aspects of BootDev is that they have an active Discord community with people there to help you if you get stuck or you have any other questions. And at BootDev, they never want a student feeling like they spend money on something that isn't helping them. So they offer a 30-day no questions asked refund policy and a free demo of every course and its interactive features. Go to BootDev and use my promo code BananaSlamJamma to get 25% off your first month or even your entire first year if you choose the annual plan. Check out the link in the description below and start learning today. And now let's get back to learning the meta in 7.37e. So from this arose one of the most surprising things I think we've ever seen is a Terrorblade meta offlane. So suddenly what we were seeing was this Terrorblade offlane whose entire purpose was to boot these ranged carries out of lane that most other offlaners could not do reliably, and then either become a teamfight or a builder with pipe S and Y, or become their own carry, just going normal Terrorblade items. Either way, all of the Terrorblades were going for the illusions cost health instead of mana facet, and that allowed them to choose between the two builds over the course of the game. And they'd go for early-ish shards to like compensate for the loss of HP, because the heal from the shard over time is just absolutely absurd. So this was one of the weirdest developments when you'd see something like a bristleback carry and a Parablade offlane in a competitive match. But so what we saw was high statted carries, Parablade and Aura building offlaners in order to enable. And then we realized that all of these heroes were like stat building ranged right clickers with BKB. Gyro, Luna, even Morphling at that point buying BKB. So we needed some BKB piercing stuns. So we saw offlaners like Beastmaster that not only buffed up these heroes, but also disabled through BKB, Primal Beast. And the only way to deal with them was to just lock them down through BKB. And that felt like it was absolutely essential coming from the offlane role. But then even then, we saw some of the most popular supports are Shadow Demon with his ult piercing BKB slow and purge. And then we have Tusk with a bunch of BKB piercing stuff with the kick and the punch, as well as the physical damage from tag team. Doesn't go through BKB, but you get the idea. So the idea is you have these heroes that come online early, they need to be buffed up, and then you had two playmaking supports that were capable of either saving, because they're Tusk, or causing a lot of havoc in fights, or dealing with the stat-based carries. So we saw a lot of Clockwork, we saw a lot of Shadow Demon, we saw a lot of Tusk, and then towards the end of the event, we started seeing, okay, well now everyone's trying to do damage to these carries, let's pick supports that buff them up. So the most popular support towards the end of the tournament, but also really popular in the patch right now, 55% win rate at Divine, is Lich with that Frost Armor AoE slow. He's just like a better Crystal Maiden. His laning stage is very reliable. And then the other hero is Ogre with the learning curve facet. Yeah, level 1 you're useless, but level 2 you suddenly have 2 points in Ignite and you're winning your team your lane, and then you go Bloodlust, buffing up the damage of these carries. So I feel like the entire meta at Dream League, but also for what you guys to think about, is basing from the carries. So this is a meta, oddly enough, that if you're a support or offlaner, it's going to benefit you to queue with a carry or talk to your teammates that are playing carry and ask like, hey, what are you going to pick? Because synergy to enable these carries is absolutely essential right now. And if you're not getting that synergy, keeping in mind that these BKB piercing stuns in the offlane, as well as the Terrorblade offlane meta, is potentially the way to go. The mid laners were pretty much exclusively playmakers. We saw very little farming-esque mids. Playmakers were like Earth Spirit, Ember Spirit. We even saw some Queen of Pain popping her head up in there. We saw like Earthshaker sometimes. We even saw DK being put mid as like a blink stunner. And we didn't see any of the farming, pushing mid laners that are a little bit less flashy. So Puck was popular. These are all heroes that are like really hard to play if you're not a traditional mid laner or specializing in these heroes. So it's a tough mid patch if you're struggling for role queue games and you have to earn your tokens and get stuck mid. But with that in mind, having like one melee initiator like a Primal or an Earthshaker in your pool will probably help you a lot. And since a lot of these heroes were getting picked over the course of the tournament, we started seeing a lot of Dazzle mids and Huskar mids or banned. You know, a lot of these heroes starting to prop up as like huge threats because they just absolutely dominate these melee mids. So it's also a great patch if you see people going for those melee mids to pick the likes of Dazzles and Huskars mid and absolutely demolishing them if that's in your wheelhouse. So the way I look at the map right now and the overall meta update that I'm thinking about is that it's still very high tempo, brawl, and carries, your job is to get out of lane and then farm jungle pretty fast. Now what happened is they nerfed the shit out of like 3 of those carries. Medusa took a pretty huge hit. It didn't seem like much, but they nerfed her mana shield at all stages of the game, and they also nerfed her split shot damage slightly. They nerfed the shit out of Luna. Overall, nerfing Conda was the only item that they changed in 7.737E, but they also nerfed her innate, her level 10 talent that she took every single game, and also they made it so that she doesn't have the Moonglaze fired on Lucent Beam anymore as a talent at all. And that was like the huge power spike. So now Luna, I feel like, is completely dead in the water. Don't pick her anymore. The entire build that made her viable is just gone. So now we have to think of like replacements. So if you're looking to go stable meta right now, the reliable picks are Alchemist and DK. But if we pull up Dota 2 Pro Tracker, you're going to see something after 7.37E. So first off, all the split shot farmers not doing too well. What I am seeing is a bunch of kill-based heroes. Ursa, Kez, Spectre, Drow more so like maybe the new ranged reliable carry. If she gets out of the lane with something like the Lich or the Ogre supporting her. And then we see Slark, a kill hero. these are the heroes that seem to be winning. Sven, naturally, he got buffed. He was one of the few heroes in 7.37E that got buffed, and we're needing to replace these split shot damage carries that got nerfed. I don't think Gyro's the best hero to pick in pubs, so if you're learning carry, I just don't highly recommend Gyro. He hardly got touched, so you can still play him if you want, but I think he's more of like a hero that revolves around his team playing around him, and if he doesn't get that, he's very underwhelming. But Lifestealer, apparently, low sample size, pretty high win rate. But like, if we look through the carry hero pool, most of them are red, right? And as we scroll down, it becomes more and more irrelevant when it comes to win rate. So I'm thinking for carry hero pool, we're struggling right now, right? And so when we're looking at the mid hero pool, a lot of these active heroes, mainly Earth Spirit, who was getting picked a lot, is also nerfed. Sand King in the mid lane was very popular, also as a flex pick to the off lane. He got nerfed again. So I think what we're going to start seeing is a shift towards maybe the carry hero being a bit more kill oriented and the mid laner being a tad more farm oriented. So keep this in mind when you're playing in your pubs. You know, we never know exactly where this is going to go for 7.37E, but the tempo of the game remains the same. The objectives on the map, you can't really shut people off from farming. The only way you can control enough area in the game is to just kill people. So people are generally going for like one acceleration item out of the laning phase, like Blade Mail for mid laners, like Earth Spirit, for instance. They're going for like Mask of Madness as carry or Armlet or something like this. And then they're going for like straight fighting items like BKB Blink, so that if they want to keep farming, they can. But if they need to shut down the opponent or the opponent is bringing the fight to them, they can take it. It feels like right now, no matter what role you are, if it's 15 to 20 minutes into the game and you're not ready to fight yet, the games feel really hard. And the only option at that point is to tell your team, I cannot fight right now, separate on the map, draw as much time as possible so that I can get to my items such that I can fight. And trust me, telling your pub teammates, let's not fight, is very difficult. So that's not a situation we want to find ourselves in. But if that is the case, my best option for you guys is to communicate to your team, I can't fight until this item, and then going for that and seeing what happens. Because right now, the split push stalling game is incredibly difficult. There's too many heroes in the game that kill you. There's too much damage. We're seeing like, I mean, I even saw like the Slarks and the Ursas are apparently becoming popular again. Because as these split shot heroes, farming heroes get nerfed more and more, the risk to reward ratio of being a hard farmer that's meant to hit timings just goes down, down, down. So we're probably going to see a tilted balance back into reliable safe laners that potentially dominate their lane if in the right matchups, like the Ursas and the Slarks, and potentially the Monkey Kings, right? These passive-based carries, meaning they have a passive that does damage. They don't play passively. That's something we're most likely going to see a tick up. But what I am going to do is make sure I update you guys in a week when I've played a bit more Dota, because I've only been back for 2 weeks now, and we're going to just see how this meta shifts and evolves. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the 7.37E meta update, and I'll see you guys next week with more. Bye-bye.